So, hey everyone, I want to talk about the cardinal sin of competition. And this is from my own mind. This is from my own 31 years of experience coaching and competing. It's not from something I read in a book. I'm not here. I can't stand the regurgitation nation where people don't have an original thought and they need to, read a book and figure out what to say. Okay? If all the books vanished tomorrow, I'd be saying what I'm saying right now. Cardinal sin. My cardinal sin is beating yourself. You should never beat yourself. It's the most important thing. You should be able to hold your head high if you go out there and you give everything and you lose. You got the feedback, you know what to work on, etc. When you beat yourself, there's never a longer ride home. There's never a longer plane ride home than when you beat yourself, than when you know you had a lot more in the tank, than when you know that you were intimidated, than when you know you doubted yourself and you held back and you lost, not because that other person was better than you, not because their strategy was better than you, but because you beat yourself. What are the ways you can beat yourself? We see it all the time in UFC. What? First of all, people not making weight. Not making weight. There's no reason for that. That means that's a lack of preparation. That's something that's within our control. When we don't make weight, that goes to show, if we can't make the weight, then we probably did a lot of other things wrong in the camp. Our head wasn't right, our practices weren't right, our preparation wasn't right. And especially in like IBJJF, where it's a same day weigh-in, make the weight 10, 15, 20 minutes later, you're fighting. Got to be a real pure weight cut. You got to become a pro. You got to make the weight. You have to during camp. In the run up to camp, a month out, 2 months out, you need to be constantly monitoring your diet and monitoring your weight. Roughly a pound a week. If you're cutting weight, it should be roughly a pound a week. That's a safe way. That's a reliable way where you can get to the fight and probably have a lot of energy. You're doing it, losing 2, 3 pounds, 4 pounds in a week is, you might still get good results if you're a young guy, but you start getting older, you have to do things the right way. About a pound a week is about right, is where you can cut the weight and still be really strong. Another thing, what can you control? You can control your confidence, man. Confidence is that, people talk about mindset, this, that, and the other, and how mental fighting is. And confidence is huge. Confidence is huge because when you're not confident, you hesitate. And the higher you go up in any sport, wrestling, judo, Jiu Jitsu, MMA, football, the higher you go up, hesitation means the opportunity vanishes. The opportunity is there for a fraction of a second, for a split second. And you have to be that quick. You have to see it, boom, and you got to go. And when you're not utmost confident, you're going to hesitate. And when you're fighting the very good athletes or the great ones, that hesitation, you ain't getting nothing against them. You ain't getting nothing because they're supremely confident. You look at a guy like John Jones. I like John Jones. I want to see John Jones turn it around. I want to see him transform. I like John Jones. I'm rooting for the guy. His brother Arthur Jones was a Baltimore Raven at one point, after all. I'm a huge Ravens fan. John Jones, much respect for John Jones. But John Jones, to me, if I have a young MMA fighter, I would never put John Jones in, have him watch a bunch of John Jones video and say, technically, this is what you should do here, here, here. I see a ton of technical flaws in John Jones, from the way he walks, kind of Frankenstein-y, and the foot movement's lacking. His wrestling is not, where it could have been. I don't see John Jones getting incrementally better in the areas like Jiu Jitsu and even his wrestling. He's kind of stood still. He's always been at a high level, and he's an improviser in the cage. I think that's his strength. John's an improviser, and he is mentally tough as nails. He's got competitive greatness, and he is supremely confident. To me, those are the things. And he's a natural athlete. He's naturally long. Can't teach that length, can't teach that athleticism. I equate him with like a Roy Jones. I think that as soon as John gets a little bit older, Roy Jones was phenomenal, but a lot of it was that natural athleticism, and once that went, not like a Floyd. Floyd is technically on point, technically precise, and you see what Floyd's doing at an advanced age. Floyd be 45, and he's still going to be elite. But a guy like Roy Jones and even a John Jones is going to have a big drop-off because technically he's lacking. But giving John maximum credit, John up here above the neck is super strong. He's super confident. He beats a lot of guys. He concedes nothing. He goes into that cage. He hits his octagon. And John Jones really hasn't lost. He has a DQ loss, which wasn't really a loss. It was probably a bad call by the ref. But to me, that's where John Jones really excels. It's the mental part. It's the confidence. So you got to really look at cultivating confidence. Some of that confidence comes from your preparation, from your camp. Some of it comes from your past victories, right? When you start winning enough, and that feeds confidence. Some of it comes from visualization. A lot of it can come from your parents or a certain mentor, somebody believing in you. Best place for it to come from would be to hit the parental jackpot like a Cal Ripken or a Derek Jeter, and have parents who really instill that in you, right? You don't have all that fear, and you're just programmed to be confident, right? Like even a Tom Brady or somebody who's got a naturally high level of confidence. That's a good place to start. Most people have a lot of fear in them, and you have to sort of deprogram that. But that's another reason that you talk about people beating themselves. They beat themselves above the neck. I think another way people beat themselves is, John Smith talked about this years ago when he was preparing for the Olympics and he was competing. John Smith, the coach of Ohio State, the two-time Olympic gold medalist. A lot of people have an excuse ready in the back of their mind. Oh, this has been hurting. This injury's been hurting. Oh, I don't like the way the brackets are. The brackets aren't fair. Or, oh, whatever. People have all kinds of excuses ready in the back of their mind. Very dangerous, man. Be careful with that when you go to the tournament, right? You want the perfect camp. There ain't going to be a perfect camp. You can have a great camp. You can have a great camp and lose. And I've seen people have a not-so-great camp and then dial in and have the tournament of their lives. There's no rhyme or reason. Joe Benavidez and I once had that conversation. Said, Frank, I felt the best I've ever felt for that second rematch with Demetrius Johnson. Felt the best I've ever felt. Had a great camp. Got knocked out in the first round. Right? And then Joe's had other camps that didn't go as smoothly, didn't go as perfectly, and he got the job done. Right? Even his first fight with Demetrius Johnson was a competitive fight. So there's not always a lot of rhyme or reason as to how the camp is. Your responsibility is to find a way and make it happen. That's what winners do. I mean, Tom Brady and the Patriots stunk it up in the Super Bowl. In the first half, they were terrible. And they went in at halftime, and it was like, well, this is the ditch we dug. And we were terrible. And we've got to be incredible in the second half. And they were. Why? Because that's the situation they found themselves in. You got to make it happen. You got to be able to flip a switch. And that's what winners do. Another common way that people beat themselves, give their opponents too much credit, right? You don't want to underestimate them. You underestimate your opponent, that's going to hurt you too, right? That's a form of beating yourself. You make the mistake of underestimating your opponents. You got to assume that they're really good. That's what's going to make you dig deep and train and give everything in camp. If you underestimate opponents, you'll be lazier in camp. You won't squeeze as much out of yourself. So you got to assume, that they're going to show up and that they are training night and day and that they're hungry, right? On the other spectrum, though, you don't want to give them too much credit, right? Then you psych yourself out. So that's why I remember talking to Randy Couture a while back, and Randy would say, he would watch tape of his opponents, but not too close to a fight, and he wouldn't overdo it. It was just a point where it's like, okay, I've seen this guy's tendencies, and I'm okay. I have an idea. This is how he stands. This is what he does, and now let's get to work, and let's work on a strategy to beat that, and then be confident in that. And sometimes if you study your opponents too incessantly, it's worked for me. I've been an incessant studier. I know my boy Mikey Musumeci, who I train with, who's phenomenal, who's going to be a great one in Jiu Jitsu, hoping he wins a world title coming up here soon. A guy like Mikey is like, he is an overthinker. He analyzes a lot of video, and it works for him. That approach works for him. But I would say for most people, Even remember when I was talking to Dom Cruz, it's like, he watches some tape of guys, or his camp watches tape, but you just don't want to go overboard, because it does have a way of like of psyching you out, and you can be ridiculous. Again, I've seen guys like Antonio Tarver with Roy Jones. Antonio Tarver studied a ton of Roy Jones tape. Going back, he lost to Roy Jones when he was younger, and he studied a lot of tape on him forever and ever, and knew every move Roy Jones was going to make when they fought. Right? I think they fought 3 times. And I thought Tarver won the first fight. Of course, he famously knocked Roy out in the second fight. But he seemed to have Roy's number, and studying so much video and understanding Roy Jones's tendencies no doubt helped him. But I think, again, there's a balance to be struck there for most people. And you want to be careful not to give the other person too much credit. You've got to believe, look, they're really good, but they're looking good. That's not me. They're looking good because they're not in there against me. When they're against me, I don't let all that flamboyant stuff, all that highlight reel stuff, that doesn't happen. You have to start thinking that way. And when you do that, when you start thinking that way, you're communicating to your body, to your subconscious, that, hey, I'm a bad mofo and I'm going to get it done. You have to have, you see, Connor does that too. Ali did it. You have to have that kind of communication. You're communicating to your spirit, and that you're freeing it up to say, look, this is what I expect of you. I expect big things from you, right? Another way people beat themselves. What? They aim too low, right? I see people nowadays are like, don't be, I'm not running a race. The only race I'm running is against myself. That sounds great. And if you're lucky enough to be in an industry or at a your life is constructed such that there doesn't need to be any competition ever, right? So there's 2 spirits. There's the cooperative, and then there's the competitive. And some people are very cooperative personalities, and some people are very competitive personalities. But don't demonize the people that are competitive, because some of the world's competitive. Business is competitive. Athletics is competitive. And in my opinion, we shouldn't run when it's there. There's a time and there's a season of our life to be cooperative and helpful, and there's a season to be competitive. When you show up at a jiu-jitsu tournament, people, you can get hurt. You can get hurt. Go look at the ferocity of an NCAA wrestling tournament, or a cage fight, or a jiu-jitsu, a major jiu-jitsu tournament. It's ferocious. These people are getting after it, man. They'll dump you on your head, take your arm home with them, right? It's competitive. It's not just whether I win or I lose doesn't matter. No, it matters. If winning and losing doesn't matter to you, then stay home. Do something else. But I'm talking about for people that want to be competitive, who want to, when you are a little competitive or a lot competitive, it helps you squeeze more out of yourself. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as you channel it in a constructive way, right? As long as you can remain respectful toward other people, as long as you enjoy seeing other people do well too, just as long as it's not your opponent, right? You can love your opponent, you can be their best friend after the match, but during that time on the mat, no, it's about winning. So you have to be the person. I used to tell this to Mikey when we used to talk, like, look, if there's a piece of bread in the middle, you have 2 people of equal ability on different sides, and they're both really hungry, they're equally able. The person that wants that piece of bread the most is going to get that piece of bread. You could say, well, they could cut it in half and share it. Yeah, they could. But if it's a fight for that piece of bread, the one who wants it the most is going to get it. That's the way that the law of attraction works. And don't demonize competition. It's the way of the world. And it's actually how people improve. The standards of industries go up. Jiu-jitsu is better because competition exists. Imagine jiu-jitsu without competition. The performances, the quality of jiu-jitsu wouldn't be as high. It's as high because the bar keeps getting raised, and the competitors are the ones leading the bar being raised and awing us with these new things and this jiu-jitsu that they can do. They can perform under pressure. They can perform on a big stage. They're the standard. They're setting the standard. They're the trendsetters, right? Don't demonize competition. I mean, outside, those of you watching who are competitors, you understand, but a lot of other people are like, oh, I'm running my own race, and it makes it easy on them, right? Instead of becoming weaker mindset, just become stronger. Embrace the competition. Run toward the competition. Run toward the challenge. and realize that that's where the growth is. Right? Don't demonize people that are competitive. You know, it takes every kind of personality to make the world go round. The world needs some competitive people. Okay. So as far as, again, aiming too low, I'm not a fan. You know, I make a joke sometimes, like, yeah, you know, the secret to happiness is, you know, aim low. Right? Don't have big expectations. Just aim low. You'll be really happy. Right? You'll never disappoint yourself. But I don't like that. Aim big. Don't beat yourself. You aim low, you're beating yourself. You're cheating yourself. You're never going to really. You got to demand a lot of yourself. You've got to envision yourself exponentially as like, whatever you think you're capable of, multiply it, exaggerate it. Whatever you think you're capable of, go, hey, how about times 2? How about times 3 of that? Exaggerate it. Right? That's the way to grow. You're setting the bar higher for yourself. And then you say, you got to be a Tom Brady. Like, okay, well, set that bar pretty high. I got to make it happen. You're sending out signals to the universe. You're sending out signals to yourself. You're communicating to every cell in the body. You're going to make it happen. You're going to make it happen in the right moments. You're going to own the mat. You're going to own that day. And you're going to get it done. And you need to have that conversation with yourselves a lot. A lot, and pound it into you. Okay, so I hope that these are helpful, guys. I know this is a long video, but again, cardinal sin, thou shalt not beat thyself. That's the number one. You have to look at what you can control in your toolbox. Your diet, your attitude, your confidence, your training, right? Your preparation, your work ethic, understanding how to peak, right? How light days, hard days, periodization, hydration. Taking a look, there's so many variables. Really taking inventory of all those variables and managing those variables and setting the bar high and always feeding your confidence. Because the nature of what we do, especially those of us that are competitors, the nature of what we do, there's a lot of doubt there. You're going to have moments. Go watch Anderson Silva in his documentary, Like Water. I mean, he's going to fight Chael Sonnen in the first fight, and he's like, I want to go home. I want to go back to Brazil. I want to be with my family. You know, George St. Pierre has been a nervous wreck before many fights, especially the first fight with Matt Serra, which he got knocked out. He got TKO'd, he got hit behind the ear, and George St. Pierre, of course, a great champion, but even him, I mean, he deal with nerves. Everybody deals with nerves, man. Anybody who is lying. But you gotta constantly feed your mind, because at some point it becomes mental. And when you see people beating themselves, normally that is mental. When you see people committing the cardinal sin, beating themselves, they are usually falling short in their mindset and their attitude. You show me somebody with a lazy work ethic. You show somebody with a shitty diet. You show me somebody who's underestimating opponents. You show me someone who's aiming low. All those things originate in the mind. All those problems originate in the mind. The problem there is a crappy attitude and a crappy mindset. And you've got to take ownership of that. And you got to spend time to feed that. Because that's the difference between winning and losing. And listen, it's hard. It's hard to go out here. I've competed a lot of years. It's hard. It is super competitive. The line between very good and great is a thin line. And the line between winning and losing at the high, and you keep going up at the highest levels, is thin, man. It's thin. And your best weapon to do anything in this life is right here above the neck. It's above the neck. So I hope that this was helpful to you guys, and I appreciate you watching. I'm very passionate about this stuff, and of course, I'm not anybody's guru. I don't know it all. I'm just passing on what I've learned in my 31 years. I'm still hungry to learn. I'm still hungry to compete, and I'm still hungry to be better. And I hope you can feel that. And I always welcome you guys giving me feedback too, because a lot of you guys, you know, I've bled with you. I've been on the mats with you. You guys have sharpened my sword, made me better. And I'm very appreciative, so I always welcome any feedback, all right? So go get it. out there on the mat today, and hope to hear from you guys.